The Galactic Council had long been the unquestioned rulers of the stars. They were a collection of the most powerful and advanced species in the known universe, each one unique in its technology and culture, united by the belief that they had achieved the pinnacle of existence. They had explored every corner of the galaxy and wiped out any trace of the primitive races that once called these stars home. They had watched as entire civilizations fell under their reign, and they had never once feared rebellion. They believed their might was unstoppable and their technology unbeatable. They were wrong, but they didn't know that yet. Far from the center of the galaxy, at the edge of known space, something long abandoned floated in the cold dark void, a ship drifting aimlessly, a relic from a forgotten time. No one alive in the galaxy had any recollection of the human species that had once called it home. But this vessel was proof that such a species existed and had once been a force to be reckoned with, or at least that's what the few who dared to study the wreckage hoped to find. No one sought its potential except for the humans themselves. The ship was old, covered in rusted patches and corroded steel, but still it held together. Its once bright white surface, now dull and scarred from years of neglect. In the vacuum of space, there was no sign of life aboard, no crew, no cargo, no markings save for a strange set of symbols. The Galactic Council scouts had initially dismissed it as worthless junk. Their sensors registered no energy output and no sign of any advanced technology within its wreckage. To them, it was a piece of history better left forgotten. But the human scavengers who stumbled upon it didn't see it as a relic. They didn't see it as an outdated vessel. They saw it as an opportunity to prove that they could turn anything into something. The humans, who had long been regarded as nothing more than a fleeting memory in the galaxy's history, were no strangers to making the impossible happen. They had thrived on resourcefulness, on ingenuity, on finding a way even when the odds were stacked against them. And the ship, despite its outward appearance, was a testament to that spirit. As the scavengers explored the vessel's abandoned corridors, they found strange old systems barely functioning, but still alive. A few sparks of power still flickered through its wires. Ancient engines hummed faintly in the distance. It was the barest hint of life, and yet it was enough for them. They set to work immediately, tearing through the ship's interior with makeshift tools and piecing together systems that should have been lost forever. With nothing but their hands and their knowledge of ancient human engineering, they slowly began to breathe life back into the cold hull of the ship. Each day the ship came closer to functional. Every repaired circuit and every restored piece of machinery was a victory. Every flicker of light and every burst of power was a sign that the humans had done something that no other species would have dared. They were turning a forgotten relic into something new, and no one in the galaxy knew it yet, but that ship would soon prove to be the galaxy's greatest mistake. To the rest of the galaxy, the ship was nothing more than a curiosity lost in the expanse of space, a relic whose purpose had long been forgotten by the civilizations who had once crossed paths with the humans that built it. The members of the Galactic Council had no interest in the abandoned craft other than to confirm its insignificance with their advanced sensors. They saw no energy signatures, no signs of life, no technologies worth exploring. It was just another piece of debris floating in the void. Yet among the human crew who had discovered it, there was a sense of purpose. They saw the vessel for what it could become, not what it was. It was a challenge, a puzzle to be solved, a chance to prove to the galaxy that humanity was not gone forever, and that their legacy could not be erased so easily. They worked tirelessly, dismantling the old, ineffective systems and replacing them with parts of their own design, piecing together scraps of technology in a way only humans could. They were not the only ones to notice the derelict vessel, however. The alien races had a tendency to view everything through a lens of superiority. Their intelligence, their technology, and their strategies had always kept them at the top of the galactic hierarchy. For centuries they had expanded, adapted, and crushed any resistance with ease. They'd seen planets burn and civilizations crumble beneath their might. Their greatest triumph had been the near total extinction of the human race, who had once dared to challenge their supremacy. Humanity's rebellious spark had been extinguished, they thought. At least until whispers began to spread within the Council's elite military forces of an old human ship, somehow still functioning at the very edge of the galaxy. It was dismissed at first, a rumor, nothing more, But as the whispers grew louder, they could no longer ignore it. The ship could hold no real value, they believed, but the fact that it still existed, that something as irrelevant as humans had built such a vessel, was worth investigating. The Council's representatives sent a small fleet to the coordinates of the derelict ship to silence whatever hope it had sparked among the remaining human colonies. The mission was simple enough: destroy the ship, confirm it posed no threat, and move on. The alien fleet was fully equipped with the latest weaponry and technology. They had no doubt that the humans would be no match for them now, but the fleet's commanders underestimated the one thing that had always made humans dangerous: their unrelenting will to survive and adapt. Back aboard the human vessel, the crew had begun making real progress. Every corner of the ship revealed something new: an old weapon system reactivated, and with it the beginnings of a defense system that had been long forgotten decades or even centuries ago. The ship's once defunct engines roared to life, powered by the humans' work and creativity. They turned what was a useless piece of scrap into a tool of survival and defiance. As the alien fleet approached, the humans stood ready, their eyes fixed on the ship's monitors, waiting for the inevitable attack. But they were not afraid. Instead, they felt a rush of exhilaration. They had done what others thought impossible. They had given new life to something no one else would even bother to look at. The ship was their answer to the galaxy's underestimation of humanity. The first of the alien ships appeared on the sensors, and the humans didn't hesitate. They powered up every system, every weapon. The ship they didn't just repair the vessel, they had reawakened its potential, and they would show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The alien fleet, sleek and powerful, loomed on the edge of the human ship's sensors. Their approach was slow, deliberate, a show of dominance, meant to intimidate any remaining human survivors. The vessels gleamed with advanced technology, their weapons capable of annihilating entire fleets in seconds. The aliens thought their superiority was so absolute that nothing could stop them. But what they failed to realize was that the ship they were approaching was no longer the same derelict wreck it had once been. The humans aboard the vessel stood tense, their hands hovering over consoles that had only recently come back to life. There was an undeniable feeling of anticipation in the air. They had done the unthinkable in repairing and reactivating the ship's systems, but they knew it wouldn't be enough to simply survive. They would have to turn this ancient relic into something that could fight back, something that would make the alien fleet regret ever underestimating humanity. Inside the control room, the crew worked as one, their movements precise, and coordinated, each person knowing their role to perfection. The ship's central eye, which had been little more than a faint whisper in the void when they first found it, had become their ally, reprogrammed and optimized by the crew's hands. It now offered real-time tactical analysis and support. It had once been a tool lost to time, but under human guidance, it had become a weapon of choice. The ship's engines roared to life, the low hum growing steadily into a deep rumble that reverberated through the hull. They had restored its propulsion system and enhanced it with makeshift improvements scavenged from nearby space stations. Now the ship moved with a newfound purpose. It no longer drifted aimlessly in the void. It was awake, it was alive, and it was ready to face the threat that loomed just outside. On the alien ships, the first signals of movement came through their sensors. A small but undeniable shift in the ship's energy output. It was faint at first, but as the human vessel powered up, the intensity grew. The aliens had thought they would encounter an easy target, but instead, they were met with the sound of a threat emerging from the depths of space. From the command bridge, a seasoned alien captain watched in disbelief as the human ship fired its first weapon. The shot was nothing fancy, just a basic pulse shot from the ship's reactivated gun systems, but it was aimed with precision and struck dead center on the lead alien vessel. The blast shook the ship's shields and sent a shockwave through its systems. The aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. This was not the vessel they had expected. This was not the humans they had crushed years ago. The alien fleet immediately shifted into attack formation, but the humans were ready. The crew's confidence had grown with every passing moment. The ship wasn't just a machine, it was a testament to human resilience and adaptability. They had fought and won battles on far less. They had faced impossible odds and come out on top. This was no different. Target the weak points, One of the human engineers shouted from the back of the bridge. The AI responded, calculating the best points of attack and relaying the data to the crew without hesitation. The humans opened fire again, this time with heavier firepower retooled from the ship's former weapons array. The blasts were louder and more powerful. They hit with force that reverberated across the alien ships. The aliens began to retaliate, their weapons aimed with deadly accuracy. The stars around the two forces lit up with energy, but the human ship moved with an agility and speed no one had predicted. The makeshift improvements allowed them to dodge most of the incoming fire and return with their own deadly precision. The battle was just beginning, but it was already clear that the humans were not just surviving, they were fighting back with a fury that shook the very foundation of the alien fleet. The alien fleet, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance, quickly regrouped. Their commanders, seasoned veterans of countless victories, had assumed this would be an easy task. They had underestimated the humans. They had assumed that after all these years, the once rebellious species would have been nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. Yet here they were, facing a ship that had no business being a threat, a vessel that should have been scrap, fighting back with a force they hadn't anticipated. On the human ship, the atmosphere had shifted. What had once been a crew uncertain of their odds was now charged with a shared energy. The battle was on, and they were no longer just defending. They were attacking with purpose. Every time they fired a shot, every time they outmaneuvered the aliens, it wasn't just a victory in space, it was a statement. The humans were alive. They were here, and they weren't going anywhere. "We've got incoming fire from 3 ships. Direct hit in 15 seconds, shouted the communications officer, his voice tight but clear. He didn't flinch, not even when the hull vibrated beneath their feet as the first wave of alien fire struck. "Brace for impact," the captain ordered, his voice calm but laced with intensity. The ship's AI did its work instantly, routing power to the shields, strengthening them where they were most vulnerable. The humans had spent hours tweaking the shield's energy distribution. The old ship's systems had been designed with different priorities, but they had turned every shortcoming into an advantage. The aliens fired relentlessly, but the human ship's agility and clever reconfiguration allowed it to absorb the blows and keep going. "Shields holding at 70%, the engineer reported, his voice almost too steady. "Keep them steady. Redirect everything to forward shields," the captain barked. There was no hesitation in his orders. The human ship was a living thing now, and its crew was in tune with it. They had spent every waking hour re-engineering, repurposing, and reinventing this ship, turning a forgotten relic into a weapon of hope. The alien fleet, frustrated by their inability to overwhelm the human vessel, began firing in a coordinated barrage. But the humans anticipated the shift. "Prepare the countermeasure," the captain said, eyes narrowing as he analyzed the incoming attack. The crew moved with the precision of an experienced team, each one fully aware of their role. The alien ships fired, but the humans were ready. The ship's AI engaged a previously hidden defense system, a network of decoys they had activated only moments before. The decoys, designed to mimic the ship's energy output, dispersed across the battlefield, creating a perfect confusion for the alien weapon systems. The alien lasers targeted the decoys, splitting the attack between too many targets. The humans danced between the lines of fire, narrowly dodging the concentrated blast intended for them. In a flash of light, the human vessel closed the gap, maneuvering with unbelievable speed. It was a brutal counterattack. The old weapons had been reworked, enhanced by the crew's ingenuity and the ship's advanced systems. The aliens didn't know what hit them when the humans launched a barrage of heavy artillery, striking directly into the weaker shields of the closest alien ship. Explosions rocked the alien ship. It faltered, its shields overwhelmed. The humans didn't give it a moment to recover. They fired again, their makeshift torpedoes sending the alien ship spiraling out of control. The first victory was theirs. Direct hit. Enemy vessel disabled. The communications officer reported with a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. The rest of the fleet, seeing their lead ship falter, the battle was far from over. But the humans had already achieved the impossible. They had taken down one of the most formidable ships in the alien fleet, and the rest of the alien forces could no longer ignore the fact that the human ship was no longer just a relic. It was a deadly weapon. The alien fleet regrouped quickly, reassessing their tactics. The once assured commanders now felt the weight of doubt creeping into their ranks. What had once been a sure victory was now slipping from their grasp. On board the human ship, the crew's adrenaline was still running high. They had won the first battle, but they knew the real fight had just begun. Their systems were still functioning, but they were damaged. The shields had been battered, and the engines were at full strain. Yet there was no fear, only resolve. This ship had been brought back from the dead, and with each passing moment, the crew saw how their determination could turn the tide of the war. "Another wave incoming, Captain," the navigator called out, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. The radar screen flickered with the signature of multiple alien ships, each one more massive and heavily armed than the last. This was no longer a simple skirmish. It was a full-scale assault. "We're not backing down now," the captain said, his eyes sharp and unyielding. He gripped the armrest of his seat and leaned forward, watching the approaching fleet on the monitors. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Divert all power to forward shields and ready the cannons." The crew went into motion, their movements synchronized as they prepared for the next phase of the battle. Every member knew their role, and their focus was unwavering. The AI ran thousands of calculations per second, predicting the alien fleet's movements with chilling precision. Every shot, every burst of energy had to be perfect. Outside the ship, the alien fleet formed a defensive line, ready to crush the human vessel. Their weapons were now charged to full power, and their strategy was clear: bombard the human ship with a constant barrage, wearing it down until it was nothing but space debris. The aliens believed the humans' victory had been a fluke, that their resistance was a fleeting moment. They were wrong. As the first alien ships began to open fire, the human vessel responded in kind, maneuvering through the oncoming hail of laser fire with surprising agility. The human ship was not fast by design, but its enhancements, however crude by galactic standards, made it more than a match for the fleet's primary tactics. It juked left and right, dodging the shots and closing the gap with the alien vessels. "Firing!" the weapons officer shouted. The ship's cannons opened up with a deafening roar, sending a barrage of modified plasma bolts into the heart of the closest alien ship. It was a direct hit. Multiple sections of the alien vessel exploded in a series of violent bursts, throwing debris into the vacuum of space. Another alien ship was crippled, its weapons silenced, its propulsion systems failing. "Enemy ship disabled," the communications officer called out, his voice now full of excitement. The crew exchanged quick looks, a spark of hope igniting in their eyes. They could win this. They were proving it, piece by piece. But the alien forces weren't about to retreat. The remaining ships turned their focus on the human vessel, their attacks becoming more coordinated. A second wave of alien missiles rocketed toward the human ship, a perfect storm of destruction. The human crew had only seconds to react. "Brace for impact," the captain yelled. The ship's AI immediately took control of the shields, raising their strength to maximum as the missiles closed in. The entire ship shuddered under the force of the impact, the hull groaning as the blasts hit. Yet, somehow, the shields held. The ship rocked violently, but it stayed intact. "We've lost external communication," the engineer reported, his face pale as he worked furiously at his station. "Hull integrity is still holding, but we're taking damage to the auxiliary systems. Engines are beginning to overheat." "Can we move?" the captain asked, his eyes narrowing. "Not at full speed, but we can keep fighting," the engineer responded. The crew had no time to dwell on the damage. There was no retreat. Not now. They had come too far. "Then let's finish this," the captain said, his voice calm, his resolve unbroken. With the human ship's power still surging, they retaliated again, launching another round of modified weapons at the remaining alien ships. They would not let the fight slip from their grasp. This was humanity's moment. This was their chance to show the galaxy what they could do. The human ship was battered, its systems groaning under the pressure, but it wasn't finished. The alien fleet, now reduced by 2 ships, wasn't backing off either. Their commanders, though shaken by the unexpected resistance, were regrouping for a decisive strike. Their ships formed a tighter formation, each one protecting the other's vulnerable points. They knew the humans weren't going down without a fight, but they still believed that their combined firepower could overwhelm the human vessel in the end. "We're down to 30% on our forward shields," the engineer reported, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked to stabilize the failing power systems. The once dominant alien fleet had underestimated the humans' resourcefulness, but the time for the underdog's tricks was running out. The crew knew they were running on borrowed time. "Target their engines," the captain ordered, his voice a mix of urgency and calm. "We can't let them regroup. Focus fire on the ships that are closest to closing in on us." The crew's eyes were fixed on their stations, hands flying over consoles. There was no panic, only a single-minded focus to keep pushing forward. The ship was no longer a lifeless relic. It had become an extension of their will. The human vessel, its energy reserves rapidly dwindling, lurched forward into the heart of the alien fleet. The AI adjusted their trajectory to keep them within range of the enemy ships, while avoiding their most concentrated firepower. Every movement was calculated, the ship's once dormant engines roaring with newfound life as it pushed forward, its makeshift enhancements allowing it to move with more speed than the alien fleet had calculated. But the aliens were relentless. Their ships unleashed a brutal barrage, and once again, the human vessel rocked with the impact of energy blasts. The shields flickered, their power nearly depleted, and the hull groaned under the strain. "We've lost secondary weapon systems," the weapons officer shouted over the sound of alarms. "We're down to the primary guns and auxiliary turrets." The situation was dire, but the humans weren't ready to give up. "Keep firing," the captain barked. "We need to buy time to get close enough to strike at their command ship. Focus everything on disabling their lead vessel." The crew responded immediately, launching another series of devastating shots at the alien fleet, striking at weak points in the shields of their closest enemies. The modified weapons, cobbled together from the ship's ancient systems and salvaged parts, blasted through the alien ship's shields, sending violent tremors through its frame. They had done it again. The second alien ship was disabled, its engines faltering, its weaponry sputtering to a halt. "2 down, but there are still too many," the navigator said grimly. The alien ships were beginning to form a wall around their flagship, preparing for their final assault. The tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew, exhausted but determined, could feel the weight of the moment. They had come so far, and they weren't about to let the galaxy think their fight was over. The captain's gaze remained fixed on the forward screen, eyes scanning the battle ahead. "Can we make it to their flagship?" he asked, voice low but resolute. The crew didn't hesitate. "We can make it," the weapons officer said with conviction, though his hands were still shaking from the previous barrage. "We've got one shot. We have to disable their command ship, or they'll overwhelm us with sheer numbers." The captain nodded. "We make this count." The crew braced for impact as the human ship sped toward the heart of the alien formation, charging into the jaws of certain destruction. It was their final gambit. The remaining power reserves were funneled into one last attack, every weapon aimed at the command ship. The alien fleet had underestimated their tenacity, their ability to adapt and fight against overwhelming odds. Now, it was the humans' turn to turn the tide. With a deafening roar, the human ship fired its final volley, a devastating barrage of plasma bolts, missiles, and re-engineered energy blasts. The alien command ship, attempting to regroup and retaliate, had no time to react. It was hit directly in its engine core, sending shockwaves through the ship. The blast tore through its hull like paper, and the command ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light. On the human ship, there was a moment of stunned silence. The crew's faces were illuminated by the light of the explosion, their hearts racing in disbelief at what they had just achieved. The lead ship was down. The rest of the alien fleet, disoriented and panicked, began to retreat, their formation splintering under the pressure. "We did it," the navigator said breathlessly, her voice trembling. The captain let out a long exhale, his eyes never leaving the display. "We did," he agreed. "Now, let's finish this." The explosion of the alien command ship sent shockwaves through the battlefield, both in space and within the hearts of those aboard the human vessel. The rest of the alien fleet was in disarray. Their once organized formations fractured as they scrambled to regroup and retreat. For the humans, what had seemed like an impossible fight just hours ago was now a moment of triumph. They had achieved what no one had thought possible, not just surviving, but delivering a decisive blow to the alien invaders. The captain stood at the helm, staring at the wreckage of the alien ships on the view screen, his face a mask of exhaustion and disbelief. "Status report," he commanded, his voice a cool contrast to the heat of the battle that still simmered in the air. The engineer was the first to speak, his hands still moving frantically over the consoles. "We're functional, but barely. Hull integrity is down to 40%. We've lost several auxiliary systems, and the power grid is unstable. We need repairs ASAP, or we'll be sitting ducks if the aliens regroup." The captain nodded. He knew they were far from safe, but this victory was their chance. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about sending a message. Humanity wasn't going to be erased. They were still here, and they had the will to fight, to adapt, and to win against impossible odds. "Send a transmission to the alien fleet. I want them to know exactly who they're dealing with," the captain ordered, his eyes narrowing. His voice was steady, but it carried the weight of a challenge that would resonate across the galaxy. As the human ship began to power down its weapons, preparing to send out a message, the alien fleet did something unexpected. They didn't flee immediately. Instead, they formed up again, but this time, their movements were more cautious. It was as if they were waiting for something. Perhaps reinforcements, or perhaps something worse, something they hadn't prepared for. A human comeback. Then, the voice of the alien fleet's commanding officer crackled through the communication system, a tone of disdain cutting through the static. "Human vessel, your resistance has been noted. However, you are still a relic of a failed species. We will wipe you out, just as we have done to every other in our path." The human crew didn't flinch. They had already proven their point. The captain's face hardened as he looked at the screen. "You think this is over? You think you've won? We're still here. We're still fighting, and we'll be ready for whatever comes next." He paused, eyes flickering over to the officer at the comm station. "Send the message. Let the galaxy know that humanity is back." The crew fell silent as the transmission was sent, a declaration not just of their victory in this battle, but of their refusal to be wiped from the stars. The galaxy would know humanity was still out there, alive, and unwilling to bow to anyone, no matter how powerful. The captain turned back to his crew, eyes glinting with something close to a smile. The battle wasn't over, but this was a turning point. The humans had won. Against all odds. They had taken down one of the galaxy's most advanced fleets with nothing but the remnants of a forgotten ship, their ingenuity and sheer determination. The galaxy would never forget this moment, but the captain knew they couldn't rest for long. There would be more battles, more enemies, more obstacles to overcome. The alien fleet would regroup, and the galaxy would respond. They hadn't heard the last from humanity. "We're not done yet," the captain said softly, his voice full of conviction. "We've sent our message, but the war is far from over. It's just beginning." The crew nodded in agreement. They had given everything in this fight, and now they knew their worth. They had proven they could survive, but more than that, they had proven humanity could win. They were no longer a forgotten species. Humanity was alive, and the galaxy would have to reckon with them. The message was sent, echoing through the void of space like a declaration of defiance. The humans had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, but they knew better than to think that one battle could turn the tide forever. As the alien fleet, now battered and broken, retreated into the depths of space, there was no time to celebrate. There was only the knowledge that this victory, while monumental, was but the first of many trials to come. "We've made our mark, but the fight's just begun," the captain murmured to himself as the crew worked quickly to stabilize the ship. The ship's hull had been severely damaged, and the power reserves were nearly depleted, but their resolve remained intact. Every crew member was on high alert, their minds already turning to what was next. The alien fleet had retreated, but that didn't mean they wouldn't return with a vengeance. No one expected a peaceful resolution. "We've got repairs underway," the chief engineer reported, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We'll be functional within the next few hours. But we need to stay on alert. There's no telling how quickly reinforcements could arrive." The captain nodded, a hard edge in his eyes. "How long before we can get a distress signal out to the human colonies?" he asked, knowing they had to reach out to any remaining survivors. If the alien fleet had underestimated them before, they wouldn't make that mistake again. Humanity's victory had to be made known to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. "We've got a small window," the communications officer answered. "We've had to reroute the comms array, but it'll be a bit longer before we can send out a signal that'll reach the far colonies." "Make it happen," the captain said firmly. "The galaxy needs to know we're not gone, that we're back, and we're stronger than ever." His gaze flicked to the screen showing the retreating alien ships. "We'll make sure they know too." As the human vessel limped forward, barely holding itself together, the crew began to regroup. The weight of the victory still hung heavy in the air, but the captain could feel the shift. This wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a statement. Humanity's resilience, their unwillingness to be wiped out, had been proven. The galaxy would no longer look at them as a spent force. They had fought back, against all odds, and in doing so, they had earned the right to be heard. But the cost of the battle was not lost on anyone. The ship was heavily damaged, and many of the crew had sustained injuries. Minor, but injuries nonetheless. They had faced death and come out victorious, but they had seen firsthand what it meant to be at war with a force far superior to their own. Their ship might have been a patchwork of old technology, but it was more than just a vessel. It was a symbol of everything humanity had endured. "We're not done," the captain said, standing tall in front of the crew. His voice rang out clear and commanding. "We've shown them what we're capable of, but there's still a long road ahead. We need to prepare for what's next. More battles, more enemies, more survival. But this ship, this crew, will stand strong. We'll show them that humanity cannot be erased. Not today. Not ever." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew. They had fought together, bled together, and now they were ready for whatever came next. The battle had been won, but the war, this war for survival and redemption, was just beginning. The captain's gaze turned to the stars outside the ship's viewports. The universe was vast, and the galaxy was full of forces that had long dismissed humanity as insignificant. But now, humanity had a voice that would not be silenced. The ship powered forward, its course set, its crew ready. The galaxy would soon learn that the humans who had once been forgotten were now an unstoppable force, no longer a relic of the past, but the future itself.